Hello, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union Nightly Restorative Check-In. As always, I am your host, Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. I am the very proud wife to Daniel. I am the mother to Camerina, Emilia, and Sofia. I am the daughter to Irma and Avran. I am the grandmother to Isabela Luna, Cynthia Iliana, and a baby boy who will make his debut into the world on February 18th. And I am the very proud granddaughter of Camerina, Alejandro, Francisco, and Carmen. I'm also the sister to Alex, Atia, and Cameron. And I am the niece to Yolanda. And many other aunts and uncles. But I always explain my introduction, and I explain my introduction because I hope that more of us start to introduce ourselves in that way, because it's a way of saying, like, I've arrived in the space that I'm in, and I've arrived knowing that I'm in this space to do the work and to have the impact that I'm meant to have in this world. And I arrive knowing that I am the product of my ancestors, of my elders, of my relatives, and of all those people that have poured into me, that have poured wisdom, that have poured joy, have poured love, challenge, pain, all of those things. And so I just always want to encourage us that as we come into a space, to introduce ourselves in that way, because we never come alone. And we also come carrying the hopes and the dreams that we have for our future ancestors. So thank you for that moment. Thank you for that time. Okay, so today is Wednesday, January 13th. We're going to go ahead and move straight into our breathing technique. So as a reminder, this is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And we do this for many, many reasons. So it's a technique that is proven to really, really relax people, but also it can help us really focus and get us ready for any transition. So we do it here on the show to transition into this time that we have together. And this time in this show is about connection. It's about connecting with the guests that we have on, connecting within ourselves, with them, and our audience. And we find out and we talk about who our guests are and also how they are. And so, transitioning, doing the breathing technique really helps us transition into that time. This technique can also be used, and I use it almost every single night when I'm getting ready to go to sleep, because it's very calming, it's very peace-filling. And so we do 4-7-8. So we inhale for 4 seconds, we hold for 7, and we release for 8. And I'll go ahead and guide us using the technique. And so let me go here to the timer. And I invite you, give me 1 second, make sure I have everything set up. So I also invite you to go ahead and put your feet firmly on the ground, just connecting to the floor. But to me, it's really connecting to the ground, connecting with the earth. And if you'd like to close your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. And we'll go ahead and take a breath in and release. And inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. I encourage you to use this breathing technique at least once a day. And as a reminder, it was taught to us by Dr. Anjali, who hosts the show on Friday. So please make sure that you join in on Friday at this time. I know she's really excited about the guest that she's having on. I had written down the name of the person that she was having on, but I can't find my notes. So, but I know that she was really excited because she told me about her guest 2 weeks ago. So make sure that you join in to Dr. Anjali's shows on Friday. Okay, so with that, I'm going to bring in our guest. I want you to know how excited I am to have our guest come on because I have been trying to get this woman to come on the show for I don't know how long. So everybody, this is Niki Martinez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Marisol. I've been wanting to get here as long as you've been wanting to have me here. Trust and believe that. I promise. My schedule just hasn't permitted me the opportunity. So I was very happy and doing cartwheels all along up and down El Cajon Boulevard when I finally figured out a time we were able to get together. So this is awesome.
So, Niki, if you could please, I know who you are in this world, but if you could please tell our audience, introduce yourself, sharing anything that you would like about yourself, about who you are in this world, the things that you love, the people you love, the work that you do, anything that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. So, first of all, it's just an honor to be here. It's an honor to be able to have that conversation and to be able to speak. And really, as I sit here and I talk, like I sit here and I speak on behalf of all of my folks that are currently incarcerated, that are currently struggling. That's where my heart is at. My women that are in the Central California Women's Facility are struggling right now with COVID, something fierce. It's ramping throughout that institution right now, and they're being really, really treated harshly and unfairly. So, I sit here with a heavy heart, and with them in mind. And, it was because of that place that ultimately led me to have an experience to where I was able to build and I was able to grow and work on myself. And I don't want to say CDCR had anything to do with that. I want to say it was my own internal, self-reflection and my own ability to want and have that desire for change. So, backing it up just a little bit. So, I am a formerly incarcerated woman. I was tried and sentenced at the age of 17 as an adult, and I was sentenced to 45 years to life. For a crime that I definitely I committed. I sit here today humbled, and definitely in everything that I do, I never ever not think of my victims. I never not have them an account of what it is that I have done and the harm and the damage that I have created in a community, which ultimately propelled me forward in a way such that now I work to directly make amends for the harm and devastation that I've caused and created, knowing that. So going back just a little bit, like I said, I was incarcerated the first 10 years, 15 years. They were, I went in the same person that I was when I went in, and I continued on conducting myself that way. The last 15 years, though, I ultimately ended up doing a 2-year shoe term. And through that process, I realized that there was other things that needed to change in my life. I just didn't know what change was going to look like.
What does that mean, a 2-year shoe term?
Oh, okay, sure. So a shoe term is when you're placed in it's segregated housing unit. So you're in prison, but you're more so in prison. You're completely isolated from population. You have no contact.
Sure.
2 years. Yeah. So I had no contact. Visits were they're, in Central California Women's Facility. They know what they're doing when they create the prisons. They create them in desolate places. So it's almost impossible for your families to get there. And then once they do get there, they go through all of these just horrible experiences, and ultimately, and then I have to make amends for that, also for the harm that I created my family members, for opening them up to that environment and those experiences that were ultimately harmful to them, so I ended up doing a 2-year shoe term. I was isolated from population due to my own conduct and my own behaviors. I definitely take responsibility for that. And as a result of that, I was back there and I realized that things needed to change. But I just didn't know what change was going to look like for me. You get out, and like they say, people, places, and things are ultimately a really big trigger for people that are involved in any form of lifestyle, right? So I came out, and what I ended up doing is I ended up, again, isolating myself from the people that I was hanging around and knew that I wanted to change. As a result of that, I created an organization for juvenile offenders while I was on the inside. And it was for folks that were under the age of 18 at the time of their crime. And who knew that there were so many individuals that were under the age of 18, tried and sentenced as adults, and received life sentences, extreme life sentences, and life without the possibility of parole sentences. So we collaborated together. We had a roster of 130 individuals, and we had a waiting list, sometimes up to 2 years. We ended up expanding the population and the criteria to come into the organization for anybody that was under the age of 25 at the time of their crime. Because ultimately, as years started going, California put in and implemented new laws. Ultimately, at first it was for 17 and under, then it went to 21 and under, and then it grew to 25 and under, understanding that the brain development is not, the development of the brain is not fully developed until the age of 25 or 26 years old. So laws are now in place to speak to that. So we changed a little bit of our bylaws, and we created that opportunity for folks that were under the age of 26 to come into our organization. Still, that's a lot of numbers. Our population is 4,000 up there. And so, to have a waiting list that could ultimately lead to 2 years was a really big deal. While I was in there also, I started facilitating groups. I started working on myself. I've done every kind of training, I've facilitated every kind of group you could think of, from domestic violence to making amends to the 12-step recovery, denial management, relapse prevention. I also became a certified drug and alcohol counselor while I was incarcerated, and I received my AA degree with a certificate in business. I created another organization, and I co-created another organization with the administration building, and it was bringing the youth back into the institution, completely going away from the scared straight tactics, knowing that being abusive is definitely not a means to help heal a child. So we went from it through a different type of lens, right? Through cognitive behavioral therapy, doing a tour of the institution, but along the lines of allowing them an opportunity to feel safe with us, but letting them know that they wouldn't be safe if they were in that environment. And so trying to really figure out what that was going to look like, and we ended up creating that. Before I left, we had the kids coming in that were up there in Fresno, Modesto, Madera, all in that area in Northern California, which was absolutely amazing. That was one of the things I was like, God, I don't even know if I want to leave, because I didn't want to leave them kids. It was an amazing, amazing experience to be able to do that. So, I did a couple of different things. I'm not going to sit here and run down a resume of everything that I did while I was on the inside. But ultimately, the thing that I want to speak to, though, is because why I did so much and why I drove so hard and why it was important for me is, like I said, because it was for me to make amends. I did not only cause harm to a community on the outside, but I caused harm and devastation and created havoc to the community on the inside. And so I felt like the only way I was going to be able to do that was I was going to be able to just start depositing goodness and sharing something and showing people a different way of living. And I started doing that while I was on the inside. I went before the California Board of Prison Hearings, October 2018. And I don't know if you guys know what that's like, but that is a grueling process. That takes probably about a good 3 years of preparation for getting all of your letters, understanding who you are internally. I was found suitable on my first time going before them, which is not really heard of considering the C file that I had. And a C file is a record of all of the harm that I had caused. My 115s, I can't think of what they're called right now, but they were like administrative reports that were done on me. And
outside when you were in the correctional facility.
When I was in the correctional facility.
So you did to get you there, but everything that you did in those 10 to 15 years before you made that change.
Yes, absolutely. I had the negative, and that was really, really strong. It was 4 C files actually, which is really, really big. But I also had the last 10 years of what it was that I was trying to do to negate who that person was, right? Because really that's what it was about. I was no longer that human being. I was no longer that woman that wanted to create that harm and devastation. Now I wanted to create that healing. And the thing is with the board, it's like they're able to see it, that's their job, to be able to identify that stuff. So I was able to go in there, like I said, get found suitable, and I was released in March 2019. 19. So I've been home for almost 2 years in this free world, and it's been such an amazing, amazing gift and ride for sure. Since I've been home, should I talk about since I've been home,
Yeah,
Marisol?
yes, I have, but I have a question for you. Before we get into that, so I'll let you take off after you answer my question. We'll talk about the amazing work you've done. But what was it, when the person that you were, so who committed those, whatever those acts were that got you this 45-year to life sentence, what contributed to the development of that person?
That's a really good question. So what contributed was my, first of all, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-value, right? And when I look at that, and that's why I love what I do today, because that somebody depositing that into human life at such a very young age is critical for our community and for our society as a whole, right? And I know that firsthand. So having that lack of self-esteem, having that lack of self-value, if you don't value yourself, you don't value others, right? And I realized for me, it was due to my lack of ability for stability is what ultimately contributed it. I'm from Chicago. I came out here to California at the age of 5 with my mom, and I went back and forth my whole life, right? And it was because they wanted me to have what I wanted. But ultimately, I look back on it and I realized I just needed somebody to say, but I don't want you to go. I needed to feel like I needed to feel like I was enough for somebody to want to keep me with them, but ultimately they just wanted to give me what I wanted. I wanted to go live with my dad. My mom would let me live with my dad. I wanted to live with my mom. My dad would let me live with my mom. So it was nothing. And it's all about self-interpretation also, how I internalized everything and how my impaired thinking allowed me to believe that I had no value, how I chose to take on the perception that nobody wanted me, was my own self-distorted thinking and thought process and patterns. And I definitely, like I said, I don't place any fault or blame on my parents by any means. I'm responsible for the way that I thought and the way that I interpreted things, but I realize now that when you don't have that self-value, you don't have just that one person telling you, you know what, you matter enough for me to just say, please stay. Or, saying I love you is great, but having the physical action and the, like they say, words is nothing without action, so having those actions display that and show you and understand what that and be able to internalize what that might mean and look like. And unfortunately for me, I didn't have the capacity to understand that what they were giving me was enough. And ultimately, because of that, I didn't feel like I was enough. If that helps, I hope that made sense.
It does. No, it absolutely does. And, I think that what is really beautiful is you've developed the understanding that like you are in control of who you are and the decisions that you've made. But I will tell you as a parent and also as a child that, it's okay. It's okay to accept that our parents didn't do the best job. Like it's okay to accept. And the thing is, I think what I've come to accept as a reality is that, if we know better, then we can do better. And people are doing the best that they can. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't harm or that they couldn't have willfully done better for us as children.
Absolutely.
And I think, I hear you taking all of the ownership, but I think that there's some sharing of that. And also, part of what you describe is as a child, you were given a lot of control. So that tells me, one of the things that I wrote down is power. I already know you're a powerful being, but like the power of your being in destruction and the power of your being in living in light. But you're describing is you have always been powerful. So you were managing your parents as opposed to them like stepping up and putting down, and not that people need to be controlled, but we need rules. Like that is a communication of care. You telling me no, because it's a human thing to like get whatever it is that you can't. Like it's very human.
Yes.
I say, like, if my kids could, they would put a straw in me and suck the life out of me. But I tell them no, because it's not absolutely not good for me, but it's not good for them.
Yes, absolutely.
We need barriers We need to know as we're growing up, because that communicates love.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody telling you, like, I know you want to go, but this is what's best for you. This is what and so I feel you taking all of the ownership, and I think that there's a little bit of sharing in there.
Well, and I think that the thing that has allowed me to be able to say it in that context is because I've been able to have those conversations with my parents. We've been able to heal, make amends for that. And the thing is like, so for the people that don't know me, I don't never want it to, because of the fact, I don't never want it to come across like I have to blame somebody, or I have to find fault or blame in others for what my actions were. I have to be completely accountable for what it is that ultimately I done. And like I said, it's the power of perception. And I chose to internalize those things, you know, but you're right. You know, my parents were young. My mom was 17 when she had me. She was a young mother, you know, so they were doing the best they could with what they had, trying to make their best lives work, you know, and at that time, they didn't know, there wasn't no parenting books or anything out at that time, you know, it's just kind of like figure it out, you know. So but definitely, and the good thing is like I said, you know, we have definitely been able to have those conversations and heal. And I love the I'm so grateful for both of my parents, because we've all been able to be accountable and forgiving and gracious with each other throughout the whole process. So it's been even that much more healing and empowering for me as well, you know.
I just again, like, I just go back to I and I can imagine just how powerful you are, but also I can imagine how proud they are.
Yeah.
And how beautiful it is to be a family with them and to have the conversations that you've had, but just that, because not everybody has that luxury of time.
Yeah.
You know, and that ability, as you call it, like, to make amends with people in this life.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to do that is such a gift for all of you.
Yeah, it really, really is. It's been, you know, and like I said, great coming home. And like I went to go see my dad, you know, for Christmas in Chicago, in December, and I was so just happy to be able to be in his presence. And the one thing he told me, he was like, I'm just so happy that you made it home, baby. So before he became of age to where he couldn't appreciate or enjoy my presence in his life, you know, he put me on the back of his Harley, and like that's what we've been talking about for 25 years, you know. So it was amazing. It was amazing, you know, and to know that he's still, you know, him and my mom are both, and my mom, by the grace of something way bigger than anything that we can ever understand, has made it and survived through it all, and are both healthy and here and happy. And as you said, Marisol, so beautifully, they're extremely proud. And I think that's the one thing that even pushes me that much harder, you know. It's like all of the disappointment, all of the harm, all of the pain, all of the many years that my mom spent on her knees just praying that one day I was going to just come home, or that I would actually even survive or not lose my sanity while I was in there, you know. It's like a duty and a heart soul motivator for me just to continue to do everything I can to make them proud and to make amends for that, for sure.
So I'm just going to tell you that without all of the experiences that you had, who you are in this world, and the way, without the extremes of your experiences, you are my dream as a mother. That my child would have found that way to love themselves, have found the love, the respect, the value in themselves, regardless of what they may have done, but really to come to understand the beautiful power of their light and their goodness, and the things that you can with that, like that, that's my dream as a parent for my children.
That's beautiful.
And it's just so beautiful and powerful and amazing that you are who you are through everything that it is that you've been through.
Yeah.
And I just also, like, regardless of all that stuff, right? Just you're here, and in such a beautiful way, the work that you've done for other people, and continue to give of yourself every day. Give of yourself to the community in a very selfless way, but also like so filled with love for yourself in doing it. And that again, you know, as a mom, like those are the dreams. Like that's the dream right there.
Yeah. And I can't imagine living up any other way, you know, but it's like that was my mom's, like one of my mom's biggest prayers too, is like especially like when I was going through that segregated housing unit term, that wasn't the first time I had been locked up like that, you know, and I had taken multiple trips back there, and in that dungeon, it's just like, I can't even explain it. But you know, my mom's biggest prayer was like, God, please just let my baby come out sane, because there was so many times where I just felt like I was going to snap, you know. And I'm telling you, I tell people too all the time, it's like it was the power of my mom's prayers and
Yeah.
something way
Yeah.
bigger than me that ultimately led me to having the healing that I was able to have, and not be the person who ultimately, I believe, you know, the institutions and the systems create that the way that they are designed to create something that they want. And ultimately I wasn't affected and created in that way by that environment. And so I'm very grateful for surviving something like that.
It was created to try to break you, but the thing that they didn't know
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
from the way you describe is the power of who you are, like
Yeah.
the power of that strength that you have. Like there's not a breaking in there. And I agree with you. I think and there's just been instance like time after story after story after story, the power of a mother's prayer. And I think that I relate it to, and I've said this many times before, but I really see women being as close to God as you can be, because we can receive life, right? And then we grow life, like we create it, damos luz, like we give light to life.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection to your child, like that. And I just think then the hopes, the dreams, the prayers, the worry that mothers have, and what they offer to their children in, you know, and that connection is beyond powerful. And it's beyond, like you said, anything of this world.
Yep. It's beyond this world for sure. No doubt, hands down. Yeah.
So tell us what you're doing now, what you've been up to since you got
a little bit of this, a little bit of I'm telling you. So people always trip out because I'm like, I have 4 jobs right now. 4. I had 5, but I wasn't able to maintain the 5th one, unfortunately. So right now, so it's crazy. So I work for Youth Empowerment, which is an organization that I absolutely love. And it's been an honor, a privilege. I mean, far beyond any of my dreams that could ever have came true while I was on the inside, thinking about what I was going to potentially do when I was released, you know? So I'm working with Youth Empowerment. I am a mentor for the youth that are coming out on juvenile probation. So I work hand in hand with them. I also am working as a case manager for Youth Empowerment for the adult reentry population. So I love them. I'm all about our folks and trying to help provide them with resources. I try and tell them, like, you know, ultimately we want to tear down a system that causes so much harm. We want to create it, transform it, and do something, you know, that's going to be more trauma informed and work with our people in a way of care that they deserve, right? And not treat them like they're just nothing. And so we're not there yet. And so if I can help do anything to prevent the recidivism rate from rising, then ultimately that's what I'm going to do. And that's the thing that we're capable of doing right now until we get these systems shut down, for sure. But my thing right now, so then I also am doing the Old Globe. I work with the Old Globe as a teaching artist. I love that. I do Reflecting Shakespeare. We actually have a series out on YouTube also. We have like 2 seasons. We're getting ready to work on our next season. So that's pretty great, as it's the Arts Engagements program, and it's called Reflecting Shakespeare on YouTube, which is amazing. And it's not amazing because I'm in it. It's just amazing the way. So ultimately, initially we were going inside of the institution, and we were taking this into Centinela, Donovan, and Las Colinas. And I was signed on to work with them doing that, working with our folks on the inside. But with COVID, we had to get creative. And so now we're doing YouTube, and we're going to send it inside the institution, and it's going to play on the institutional channel. So love being able just to connect with our folks. Last season, we had a bunch of people that were formerly incarcerated individuals that had some type of connection of the arts and theater while they were on the inside. So we had phenomenal guests on, and Arturo Soriano was actually our first guest. So that was cool to have him on there. Yes. Yeah, my boss. So it was cool. But we had people from all over the United States. We had people from New York that were on there that are amazing artists. We had I can't think of Maserati Abercrombie. I can't ever say that right, but he was on.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
He's a musician. He was phenomenal. We just had a lot of great folks on there last season. So I'm doing that also with the Old Globe. And I'm also a board member for the Restorative Justice Mediation Program. So that's something that I really, really love. I worked on 2 projects before the election, or before the voting happened in November. And I was working on Free the Vote, Prop 17 in California, to restore people that are on parole, getting our voting rights restored, and we got that passed.
Yeah.
So that was a really big thing. I was one of the faces for the people that are formerly incarcerated. You know, it was insane to me that I'm working, at the time I was working 5 jobs, I'm paying taxes, I'm doing everything that I can to be a role model citizen out here, and try and filter that out into the community and create other social proactive citizens in this country and for our state. And I ultimately don't have the right to vote, which I thought was just insane to me, you know. So we got that passed. There was another project that I was working on, which was SB 2342, and it was working on getting incentives for people that are actually on parole. So while you're on the inside, you can get credits, right, for doing positive programming. And so we're working, so I have 7 years to life on parole. So we're working to try and incorporate ways where maybe I can get incentives to where my role would be lessened.
You're on parole for 7 years, up to life, up to the rest of your life parole.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Some of this work you get credit towards at that 7-year mark of potentially looking at that ending your parole. And
yeah.
what does that mean then once your parole is ended?
Then I'm no longer on parole. I'm no longer, you know, and I think that's the thing where everybody kind of get there. I'm sorry?
That would be more freedom.
Yeah, it would be. So for example, I can't leave the county without asking permission. Like in order to go to Chicago, I had to submit all kinds of paperwork. I had to go through my parole officer. It has to go to Sacramento. I have to get all kinds of approval in order also to move in anywhere. I have to let everybody know I'm a parolee. I'm on parole. Ultimately, anything and everything could get searched because I live there. You know, just there was so many, when I was looking for a place at one point in time, like I was really point of disparity, because, you know, who would, if you want to rent with some.
I don't know if that's me. Okay, Nikki, I think you froze.
Okay, there we go. How's that?
I was like, I don't know if it's me because
I see it spinning. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of different little tiny things that are just wrong with it, you know. And it becomes challenging. There's a lot of doors that get closed in your face. It doesn't seem like it, but there really does. And there's a really strong stigma with with somebody being on parole, right? And I think that's ultimately, even with the Free the Vote campaign, what I realized is a lot of people think that you're still serving a sentence. And I think people forget, like for me, I try and tell people I served 25 years and I was found suitable by the California Board of Prison Hearings. I was signed off by the governor. He deemed me suitable to return to society. Being on parole doesn't mean I'm done serving my time. I'm under supervision, and I'm under supervision because supervision is supposed to help us transition back into society in a way that's going to be helpful and help us integrate into society, that's going to help us sustain, right? But the thing that they don't understand is parole doesn't offer us any resources or services that's going to help us do that. You know, and everything that comes in line with that of being a parolee is all of these different barriers, because informing your employer that you're on parole. And even though we've gotten check the box cleared and all this stuff, everyone still comes out very upfront. We're going to run a background check. And there's a lot of discrimination after they run that background check, whether that box is checked or not. Same thing with living. Everybody says when you go to fill out an application, well, we're going to run a background check on you, you know. And so keeping that in mind, you know, like parole and having to state that you're on parole, because really in all actuality, that's a thing, you know, you have to state that you're on parole. So just having that off of your chest gives you a lot more freedom to just be that much more successful.
And so what is the your fourth job that you have?
Okay, so the fourth job is actually I am the Chief Operating Officer of Youth Empowerment. So Arthur promoted me because I came in as the mentor for the youth. He gave me the other job as working for the case manager for the Board of State and Community and Corrections, and then he also gave me another job working as the COO as the organization, and then working with the Old Globe Reflecting Shakespeare. The other thing I'm working on, and I wanted to share with you guys too, is so I work with, it's called the Love Project. I actually work with National Crinton, the National Black Women's Justice and Institute, National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, and the Young Women's Freedom Center. And so what we're doing right now is we're creating a curriculum, and we're building a curriculum to train service providers on people from subject matter expert experience, which is through the lived experience lens. And we're actually getting ready to have a listening session on February 5th. So we'll be sending that out also, a little bit of awareness. I was a chapter lead for the for Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, which is a near and dear organization to my heart. That was actually my fifth job. But because of COVID, right, it's really hard to community organize out here and get things the way that they need to do. But we launched Freedom 2030 right before COVID hit, and we were like rampant at our best of capacity and quality and everything. And we were doing our monthly meetings here in San Diego, and unfortunately, once COVID hit, we just didn't have that opportunity to do that. So I'm doing other things with them because they're an amazing organization. I love them so much. And they're all about advocacy. They're all about transformation of systems. And what it is working with transgender, non-conforming folks and individuals, and allowing them to have the experiences and the rights of humanity and dignity, and being able to fight for those rights with the system. And like I said, putting those transformative systems in place. So yeah. That's just a little bit.
So you've always been powerful. Have you always been compassionate?
No.
Because everything that you've talked about in the work that you've done being for others, like it really is just the humanity that you have. So was that something that you really gained from really that time of like learning to love yourself?
Yeah, I think, what it is I think I've always, so looking back, right, when we talk about what ultimately led me to being who I was at the time, ultimately seeking out that acceptance, validation, unity, wanting a sense of belonging, right, and wanting to connect, just the desire and the need to connect ultimately is what led me to get to in the situations that led me to commit a crime. I think once I started realizing that who I was as an individual and how that ultimately caused harm, I think as I transitioned and I started working through my own healing, my own harms, my own trauma, my own experiences, and my own awareness, I started realizing and developing the compassion at that point. I think I've always sought out, I've always been a person that wanted to be like involved, like with the community, and I just didn't know what it was going to look like. So what does a hurt, kid do? They want to harm, but they want to still feel like they belong to something. So ultimately, when I started realizing what harm was and what compassion looked like, I knew that I wanted to go that route. And when I was on the inside, I think what really helped me is when I became a certified drug and alcohol counselor on the inside, and we started talking about what harm was, right? And I started understanding that it could be even as small as sarcasm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if people know what sarcasm means, but it's a Greek word for ripping of the flesh, right? Tearing of somebody's flesh. And when you think about that, and it's like, we laugh about it, but ultimately, what does that look like? And if you envision doing that to somebody, then really that's extremely harmful, and I would tell my girls on the inside, harm could be as small as you rolling your eyes at me. That's harmful because you mean it in a disrespectful way. You mean it in a way that's ultimately trying to hurt me, right? And I get on them too about using the B word. It's about how you interact with people, and even though that may become our normal vernacular, it's something that just cuts you a little bit deeper, and it demeans you, and it diminishes the humanity of the soul that you have, and we don't want to do that. And when I became a certified drug and alcohol counselor, understanding what that harm looked like, then I was able to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what it looked like for me and how I didn't want to do that anymore to anybody else. And that ultimately cultivated even more so of that compassion.
I think, when you describe that, I didn't know that that was the root of sarcasm,
Yeah.
but just even the way, sorry.
God bless you.
Woo, sorry.
God bless you. Many blessings.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Each one of them.
Yes.
But even that, the way that you talk to people, the way that you connect with people, you have really worked on very diligently removing any connection that is harmful.
Yes.
And so then you're only giving out connection that is really based in love and that based in dignity, right? Honoring the inherent dignity of yourself and others.
Yes.
That's respect. Can you talk about, so you talked about your healing. Can you just talk about that journey of healing that you went through?
Let me tell you, it's a process for sure. It's definitely a process. I remember like talking about it in there, and it would be, wanting to figure things out is not an easy thing, and a lot of times we get so I'll say but I have realized that, facilitating numerous classes in there, we tend to get caught up in denial. And I know I was caught up in denial for so very long, right? And denial looks like so many different things to so many different people. And our truth, what it looked like was me making excuses and minimizing everything or avoiding, right? There's different forms of denial you can avoid. I can't think of them right now, but there's like 5 of them that are actually really, really prominent. And it's avoidance, minimizing, rationalizing, justifying, and there's another one that's not blaming, right? And I think it's, so again, that's why I don't blame, because I know that that's a form of denial. So I started looking at things a little bit different, and I started taking full responsibility for stuff. And the thing is people, it can be hard to take a real good look at yourself. And I think it's not easy. And I think a lot of times for me, it was easier to avoid, which was my strongest denial pattern. It was easier to avoid that more than anything. And I think when we're growing up, and I'll use I don't mean to say we, but I definitely don't want to do that. So I know for me, my process and my journey was all about being able to figure out what the truth was, because I had a tendency of believing the lies that I told myself as absolute gospel. This was the truth, and being able to step out of that truth and understand it might be something different. And that was me trying to be accountable and also wanting that awareness. So I had to get hungry, and I had to be willing to take a real honest look at myself and allow myself the opportunity to say, no, this was disgusting. This was, abhorrent. This was horrible. This was inhumane. This was something that you should not have done, but it's your truth and you better stand in it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, the eye-opening experience with going in and understanding. And ultimately the biggest turning point in the transition for me was when I was in my SHU term, and I was back there. And I'll share a story with you guys. One of my close friends was murdered back there, and she was in the cell with her girlfriend, and her girlfriend killed her. And I remember how I felt when that happened. And I remember getting on the tier, and I remember going off. I remember threatening this woman's life, telling her, how dare her take something that didn't belong to her. I hope that, and I would wish the most vile things on her, that, somebody would saw her off at the knees with a butter knife, that she would live on her knees for the rest of her life, asking for forgiveness for what she had taken. And it finally hit me. The hate and the anger and the rage and the desire to want to harm this woman was so strong. And I realized somebody feels that way about me. This was just my friend. This wasn't my child. This wasn't my son. This wasn't my brother. This was a friend that I had met inside of the institution, and I had only known for a year. And I had thought about that, and it took me to my knees, and it made me realize, how dare you wish that on somebody? How dare you have the nerve and the audacity, to wish that on somebody, and you've done the same. And so that in it and of itself had me open up my eyes to what needed to change, and needed I at that point I understood what a disgusting and just horrible act. But I took that act, and so I had to own that. And I think that was the start for my transition. And it's as disgusting as it sounds, it took me 11 years after I was incarcerated to fully comprehend the harm and devastation that I had caused. But when I got it, I got it. And as a result of that, um, I was so it was so humbling. It was so humbling. It sent me suicidal to understand the harm that I had caused, on so many different paths in my mind and in my mindset, of how I didn't deserve to even be breathing, because I had taken something so precious and so valuable away from somebody. And I think that was the start of my process. And everything from that point on, if you can own that disgusting reality about yourself and be completely honest with myself, I was completely honest, then everything else was a lot more easier for me to accept, own, and embrace as my truth, as ugly as it may have been. So
Thank you for sharing that. And we all have that. We all have that deep, ugly, and disgustingness,
mhm,
the acts of the thoughts that we carry, the things that we've done, the motivations that
yep,
we have for the way that we are.
mhm,
And so, for you to have gone through that process of healing, the process of reflection, and really facing into the pain of the acts and what they caused. And then I think also, so with that, Niki, how did you make that turn to loving yourself? And have you also done that work of forgiving yourself?
yeah. I think so the process of me stopping to hate myself probably took up until maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. So it's been a long process, and I think the process of not hating myself for what it is that I had taken, ultimately is the same process that we go through for forgiveness, because forgiveness is a process. People think that it's a one-time thing, you forgive, and no, that's not how that goes. It will come up, things will trigger you, things will remind you, things will, and you have that conversation with yourself. So it's a process. But for me, the first 2 years after that realization, like I said, sent me suicidal. There was many of times where I had contemplated, that I just didn't deserve. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it anymore. It was that I didn't deserve to even breathe. That I
Because
was
you had
taking Yes, I had taken somebody's breath. So who am I to deserve to be breathing? I don't deserve that, and that ultimately, as you said, Marisol, led to a lot of self-hatred. And I struggled with that probably for, like I said, the next 2 years. And then what happened is I couldn't go down any lower. And I think really that turning point for me is one time I remember I had called home. I tell you, my mom is an angel. I had called home, and I had told her, I said, I go, and shame on me for even causing more harm, but I had called home, and I told her, I don't want to do this no more. It's not that I can't, I just don't want to. I can't be in my skin no more. I can't do it. I don't want to do this no more. I just don't. I don't like it. And she said, baby, they just changed the laws. California just changed the laws for juvenile LWOPs. And I was like, what? And I tell people all the time, I don't know if you understand what it feels like to not have hope in your life, but I
right.
understand what it's like to live life with no hope. And I understand how just one sentence created that hope in me, and it planted that seed, and it ultimately changed the trajectory of my thought process and my motivation to get up the very next day, right? And this, mind you, this bill didn't affect me. This bill wasn't written for, somebody that had a 45 to life sentence. This bill was written for my peers. And because it was written for my peers, it gave me hope. And I wanted to let them know that look at you're going to go home. There's hope on the horizon for you. And my mom had always told me, she goes, baby, God always told me I need to be praying not just for you, but for all of juvenile offenders. All of them. And my mom has been consistent in her prayers, even since I've been home, that they would change the laws and the policies of what it is that they do to the youth in not just California, but in the United States of America, and how our youth are suffering because of the systems that are in place. So that ultimately changed everything for me. I went from feeling hopeless, suicidal, and ready to take myself out by knowing that there was people out here in California that were fighting for us to instill a different form of law and restore some type of right and humanity to the youth inside of the California Department of Corrections. And so what's led me to create the Juvenile Offenders Committee while I was on the inside. And I think once I had that purpose and I knew that I was a guiding light for everyone, then it gave me more momentum, and I think my folks believing in me propelled me with the nurturing that I needed, with the cultivation that I needed to start working on myself even that much more, because I knew I didn't want to cause any more harm. Hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The strength of hope. I think. Do you remember the moment or the time when you really started to love yourself? Because there's forgiveness in all of this, Niki. It's all a journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Like everything is a journey, and things are going to come back, at some point and remind us of a lesson that we thought we learned. But do you remember that moment of really starting to love yourself?
I think there's different moments, but one moment that stands out is, so when I was in the inside, what I did as the chairperson of the organization, we brought in a restorative justice circle, and it was doing healing and dialogue in action. It's actually an amazing program for people that have been affected by crime, right? And what they do is they create these healing circles for people that are surrogates of victims of crime and offenders. And so we had, everybody you could possibly think of. But we ended up running a circle that day. And I remember having a conversation with somebody that had ultimately been victimized by crime. And I think what it was being in the place and being in that presence. And it was so strong and it was so heavy, and hearing how just forgiveness was just freely given. And I think that was a really big eye opener for me, that, having that forgiveness allows me to love myself. Right. And I think when I started demonstrating that is when the love started to be able to flourish. Right. When I stopped doing harmful things to myself, even if it was smoking. I had finally stopped smoking while I was on the inside, even after it was not allowed. Like, I was still smoking, but realizing that at those giving moments, like, that's little tiny opportunities of me loving myself. And now looking back on it, as we're having this conversation, Marisol, I realized, like, God, there was little times where I just kind of showed myself a little bit of love, a little bit of love, a little bit of love. And through that, I think as hard as I was, and just like with everything, as bad as I was, as much as I like to show up and I like to negate that, I think as much as I hated myself, it's imperative that I show up and I love myself just as much, so it's been a process for sure, as you said. But I know that healing and dialogue circle that we had, I know that there was a lot of healing, a lot of forgiveness. And I think that was ultimately a trajectory point for me to begin loving myself just a little bit more.
Is there anything that you're currently struggling with, or where are you with how you're feeling about the world, about yourself, about your journey?
I'm really blown away and proud of where I'm at today. Never, ever, ever did I think that I would be able to be where I'm at after only being home 2 years. I envisioned it and dreamed it while I was inside. I was like, oh yes, girl, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make it, but coming out the first 6 months, I was like, oh my God, how is all of this going to even come together? How is this going to work? Like, what am I going to do? I was getting told, no, it doesn't matter what kind of degree you have. It don't matter what you're certified in. You're still a felon. Like, all of these different things came to place. But I think I'm so positive, and I'm so so grateful and I'm so proud that there's no room for any of the dang, I wish, or man, I should have, or I'm very grateful for my mind to even function that way, but it's so true. Like I don't believe I tell people too, like when learning technology, I cried. It took me an hour and a half to get in my phone when I first got out, and I cried. That was the biggest struggle and biggest challenge for me. The day I was released, the happiest day that I was supposed to be so happy, and I felt completely inferior. I felt inadequate. I felt like I didn't belong, and I was scared to death that I wasn't going to make it just because I couldn't open a phone. And now I feel like I'm able to show myself because I've been so resilient in everything. Like I refuse to not know. Ignorance is not an option for me. I have to learn. I have to know. I have to figure it out. And even my boss, Arthur's been out longer than me. And he's like, oh, you got it down, because I refuse to fail. Ignorance is not an excuse for me. It cannot be, because I have the capacity and I have the wherewithal to learn it. So I'm going to learn it and I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get it done. So yeah, definitely.
I am so grateful for the time with you. I'm so grateful for the conversation. I'm even more grateful for your heart and who you are in this world, and the example that you are for everybody, for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisol, so much. And I just appreciate you depositing that into my little heart and into my soul, because trust and believe, I feel it. I feel your soul when you speak. So I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful for you even having me on. Thank you so much.
I've been trying. Okay, so this is, as we wrap up, I want us to share 5 things that we're really proud of. And these are things that we are, and this woman right here, that woman right there.
Oh my God, Gabby! Yes!
Even more amazing, even more amazing. So 5 things that we're proud of, and these are things that we have done that we're proud of. So just to do the work of reclaiming and really honoring ourselves and celebrating ourselves. And I also encourage Gabby and anybody else who's watching to please type in the comments like things that you're proud of. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Oh, you can go first, honey. Go ahead. Take it away.
Okay. There's some oldies and goodies, but I do have to say, like, you know what? I've been getting up and I've been doing my 30 minutes on the treadmill, and I got up and I did it today, and I get on and I like tell myself I just need to do 20, but I've been doing like 30 minutes. So I did that today. I'm very proud of that. Number 2, I have to say, as you were talking, I'm so proud of this show. I'm so proud of the opportunity to be able to share, for others to share their stories, to share who they are with the world, with whoever it is that happens to be watching. I'm really, really proud of that. I am proud that I have the resources to have my granddaughter here for preschool and to pay for a one-on-one support for her, because she is absolutely worth it. But I've had to, and her one-on-one support is my older daughter, who's her tia. But being able to help my family in that way, like I've created my life to be able to do that, to do it in the right way, in a very legal way, but like to be able to support my family in that way. Number 4, I am very proud. Okay, let me see, because I try to do a different thing every, okay. So I made the bed today and I did it really well.
So little things in life that make us feel like champs, woman, I know.
I went in the room and I was like, oh, like nobody had sat on it all day, and like everything was lined up. Like I had lined up the pattern with of the quilt with the pillow. I was like, oh yeah. And then let me see, number 5, I am very proud that it looks like I'm going to be able to pay off another bill. So we're like, our goal this year is paying off our debt. So it looks like this month I can pay off another bill. So we'll see. Okay, your turn. You're 5.
Okay, my 5. Okay, so the first one is, after having this conversation with you today, I am very proud of being able to understand what compassion looks like and to have evolved and grown into a compassionate human being. I'm very proud of that because I was very ignorant for so very long. And now I see what that looks like. So I love that. I'm very proud of that. My second thing is I'm very proud that I'm able to have an opportunity at freedom and be out here in this free world, that I was able to go through that process with the California Board of Prison Hearings and be found suitable to be a member of society and released from that horrific encagement and entrapment that they call prison. The third thing I'm proud of is being able to help Proposition 17 get passed, because that affected over more than 50,000 Californians. So I'm very, very proud of that. The fourth thing is being able to be financially well off and established to where within the next year, hopefully I'll be able to buy my own home. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I'm financially, saving and saving and saving. So I'm very, very, very proud of that. And the fifth thing that I'm the most proud of is being able to have an opportunity to work with youth empowerment, to working with our population, to being able to be a part of a team and a family that is outstanding, phenomenal, and contributing to a community that is in need and being part of the solution and helping others. Definitely proud. And I think that's the thing. It's like I come to work every day loving what I do. So it's like we're not even working here, we're just trying to do the best we can for our folks that are impacted by these systems. So yeah.
But it's important that monetary exchange happens, because we all need to deserve to live well. And that monetary exchange. So like, I'm glad that you're not working for free, because you need to support yourself. Buying a home in San Diego, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I almost was getting ready to do it within these next 3 months, but my space is getting a little bit small. So what I'm going to do, this is my plan. You ready? I'm buying property out in Illinois so that I can have that passive income coming in, and that's going to help me be able to buy my own home when I'm all the way ready. So yeah.
I am so proud of you. I am so very proud of you. Thank you for sharing. Let me just put this last one up here from Gabby. Thank you for sharing what you're proud of, Gabby. So I want to encourage our viewers, and that last comment was from my tia, the love of my life, who was thanking you for who you are. And I know that she is going to be praying for you and continue to pray for you. But Gabby, thank you for sharing. Yes. And please continue to share, because we have to celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other.
Yes.
And you did choose a great partner. So with that, our show went over 2 minutes. I apologize. Thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to join Dr. Anjali on Friday. Please know that you are loved and know that you are cared for always. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.